pace yourself, having a dedicated study space, getting your hands on high-scoring examples, academic journal articles. Hey guys, today we're going to talk about how you can study smarter but not harder. One of the tips, which by the way, is going to summer school so that you can get a head start. We at Lisa Study Guides is also doing summer school this year, so if you want to get that head start with us, then have a look in the description box below. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well if you'd like to get English study tips to help you boost your marks. First thing is to pace yourself. Don't burn yourself out already at the beginning of the year by studying as hard as you can. Instead, make sure you balance your studies with other important aspects of your life, such as your family and friends, your hobbies, your work, and the way that you can ensure that you don't burn out and that you're able to pace yourself is by creating a study timetable for yourself. So we've talked about this in a previous video, so I'll link that up above for you so that you can see a real study timetable and how you can create one for yourself. Next is to have a dedicated study space. When you have a dedicated study space, your mind is able to compartmentalize and understand that, hey, I'm in my office space now, or I'm in my study space now. Now it's time for me to study. And this is something that you build up over time as you create that habit in your mind. So don't expect just to start up a study space for yourself and suddenly be able to study productively straight away. It may be something that takes you a few days or a week or two just to really get into that habit and telling your brain, hey, this is the place, this is the situation where I will be studying and where I'd like to focus on studying. Having said that though, sometimes people can get a little bit bored of having the same setting. So it's okay to change it up every now and then as well, whether that be to go to a local library, to go to a friend's place to study, even if you wanted to jump onto Zoom study clubs, which we've done previously in the past at Lisa Study Guides. That's something that can just give a little bit of oomph into your study routine to mix it up, especially if you're starting to feel if your study space isn't quite doing what you want it to do in terms of getting you into that study mindset. The third thing is to get your hands on some high scoring essays. This is specifically for English. You want to be able to see how others before you have been able to achieve those marks that you've desired for yourself, so that rather than just working in isolation and hoping that you're going to get better marks, you can actually see those who've walked the path before you and be able to reverse engineer, work your way backwards to where you are now versus where you want to be, and have that clear direction of, oh, I want to get towards this. I can see that they've written really clear topic sentences, but for me, I really struggle with that. So I can already see that that's one thing I want to work towards. The next thing is to read academic journals. When you're studying a subject like English, looking at academic journal articles is really helpful because you get to see different people's viewpoints on a certain theme in a book or on a certain character that you may not have. And being able to expose yourself to what else is out there can really help you to make a more informed decision of how you want to see particular characters or themes or events in a book. Have you guys ever read something and not really had an opinion about the book afterwards? I know I definitely have. And so one way that I'm able to build my own unique interpretation of a text, which is really important in English when you're writing your essays, is by exposing myself to what are other people saying. What do they feel about these certain characters in text? Do they like them or not? And how does that differ from my opinion, let's say? The other really amazing thing about academic journal articles is that you can actually get unique pieces of evidence and points of analysis as opposed to the same generic ones that you might actually find in class that everyone's using, or maybe in really basic study guides about that text. So let me show you how I do this. So if you were to study Wordsworth's poetry, nature is one of the main recurring themes. And so what I used to do was I used to ask my tutor to tap into their university database and find some academic journal articles on nature in Wordsworth's poems. Then you'll see something like this. You'll see heaps of authors who've written these journal articles who've actually spent years studying literature in these specific texts. So you know that their points of analysis are going to be lit. The next thing is to know what you actually need to do and to actually do it. So if you know that your weak point is body paragraphs and that you need to be spending more time on your body paragraphs, then actually do that rather than just defaulting to writing introductions all the time just because it feels good and you're familiar with it. Just because it feels good and you're familiar with it doesn't mean that it's actually going to be as beneficial for you in the long run in terms of your study than it is to work on the parts where you feel weakest in. I know it sucks, it doesn't feel as good to work on the parts that are more challenging, but that's the whole point. You have to do the challenging parts in order to really push yourself forward. And that's how you can study smarter but not harder. Next is to give yourself breaks. So for example, you could use the Pomodoro technique, which is what we did in our Lisa Study Clubs one time when we hosted it on Zoom. We basically had a group of us come together. It was like 50 of us in the study club where we put a timer on for 25 minutes as a part of Pomodoro's technique, and then we had a 5-minute break, and then we had another 25 minutes on, and then finally to wrap up the hour we had 5 minutes off. And then that was that. It was super productive and we all had so much fun, but having these scheduled breaks can really help you to focus in the time that you know you need to be focusing. Whereas if you don't schedule yourself any breaks, then that time that you're studying can just feel like it's dragging on and on forever, and you may kind of procrastinate a little bit as you're studying. You may just not be as intentional and focused. Next is know what works for you and what doesn't. Don't be afraid to do some trial and error and see what type of study methods seem to work better for you. So for example, if you see everybody else creating notes based on their books and they use lots of colorful highlighters and they prettify their notes up, but for you, you find that you're just not really in tune with that. You're more somebody who would rather actually write the essays and that's how you learn better, then keep your eye out on that and understand more about yourself and how you like to study, rather than just believing that how everyone else does it is how you should be doing it too. It's okay for you to be an individual, you know, you don't have to copy everybody else. You do you. Next is don't be afraid of studying with others as well. So I always like to say collaboration, not competition. So don't see your best friends or people in your class as people that you need to compete against in order to get those top marks. Actually collaborate with them. And I know that sometimes that can sound a little bit scary. Like, I don't want to collaborate with them. I'm versing them in order to get the top mark in the class or something like that, let's just say. But actually when you're able to collaborate with others, you're able to get more ideas from each other and actually help each other lift up collectively. And it feels so much nicer anyways to be able to share in that success with one another, where you see improvements and you're able to go through this journey together as study buddies. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like it and leave a comment for me below. Which one of the previous tips have I mentioned today that you like the most and that you're planning to do? Next week, I'll be diving into the question of, is summer school worth it? Let's talk about it then, and I hope you guys have a great week. Bye.